We welcome you to morning devotions this morning for October 25, 2024. Glad that you can join in on this rainy, damp morning, but we're grateful for the rain. Did you hear the thunder early this morning? It boomed away. It's quite a sound. We're grateful to Jane Frieden for beautiful music. Thank you for Gentle Shepherd. That's a beautiful melody. And to Dean Beery for caring for our technical needs this morning. It's a special joy to welcome Herman Kauffman as our speaker this morning, all the way from Napanee. I was thinking to myself, the road to Napanee sounds like a song. You have to work on lyrics for that, Herman. Herman and his wife, Connie, are members of the Rock Run Church of the Brethren, which celebrates 175th anniversary next year. And Herman is also serving as moderator of the Northern Indiana District during this current year. Herman notes that he's been coming for morning devotions to Timbercrest for 30 years. How's that? That might be our longest speaker, Herman. I don't know. We're going to sing number 483 in the red hymnal, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, 483.
It's always a pleasure to be back in this wonderful chapel and to share in this time of worship with you, whether you're present in this room or in your own room or will watch this service later. Once upon a time. Now that's a clue. That's a clue that there's a story or stories coming. Stories that are true stories, not because the events in the stories ever took place as they're described, but because in the story itself there is truth. So, once upon a time, there was a man who lived in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. Now, this should not be confused with a girl named Dorothy who lived in the land of Oz. The man Job was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil, which again is not meant to suggest that Dorothy was not a God-loving girl who also turned away from evil. The story of Job, found in your Old Testament. The story of Dorothy may be found in a book titled The Wizard of Oz, written by Frank Baum in the year 1900. Continuing now with the story of Job. One day, the heavenly beings came to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser also came and stood among them. And the Lord said to the accuser, "Where have you come from?" And the accuser answered the Lord, "From going to and fro on this earth and walking up and down on it." And the Lord said to the accuser, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. He still persists in his integrity, although you have incited me against him to destroy him for no reason." Then the accuser said to the Lord, "Skin for skin. All this man has, he will give up in exchange for his life. But stretch out your hands now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face." The Lord said to the accuser, "Very well. He is in your power, only spare his life." One very ordinary day, while Job was at home resting in his recliner, the telephone rang, and Job answered the phone to hear a familiar voice say, "Job, I have bad news. Your children were having a party when the enemy attacked the house and your children were left for dead. And I alone have escaped to bring you this bad news. They are on their way to the hospital." No sooner had Job hung up the telephone than it rang again. It was a spokesperson from the local hospital calling to inform Job that his children had been brought into the emergency room, but it was too late. They were all dead upon arrival. There was nothing that the doctors could do for them, and I was asked to call and share this bad news. I'm sorry. Then Job called out for his wife, and together they fell on their knees, and Job cried out in grief, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." But Job's wife said to him, "Do you still persist in your integrity? Curse God and die." And even in his deepest grief, Job did not sin. So it was that Job, a man of God from the land of Uz, was tested by the accuser, even as you or I might be put to the test any ordinary day. And then there's Dorothy, that all-American girl from Kansas caught up in a windstorm and carried far away from her home to the land of Oz. Her story may seem less traumatic until you think of the dramatic search that must have taken place after the storm by Uncle Henry and Auntie Em. The land of Oz, we are told, is a country of marvelous beauty. Green fields, stately trees bearing rich and luscious fruit, and there is a sparkling little brook and banks of gorgeous flowers. And it is here that Dorothy's flying house lands, and she becomes aware that she is being stared at by the strangest group of people who we later learn to be called Munchkins. Dorothy is welcomed by the Munchkins because her flying house has landed on and killed the Wicked Witch of the East, thus setting free the Munchkin people from their bondage to the Wicked Witch of the East. But Dorothy, truth be known, feels a bit lonely among these kind strangers. She's really a bit anxious to return home to her family. And thus, with assistance from the Munchkins, begins Dorothy's journey down the yellow brick road toward the Emerald City to meet the wonderful Wizard of Oz and her hope for finding her way home. And along the way, you remember the story, she meets 3 odd characters who also have a need to see the wizard. A cowardly lion who wants courage, a scarecrow who wants a brain, and a tin man who wants a heart. This would be a good place to pause both stories to reflect upon the community, the importance of community for both Dorothy and Job. Like Dorothy, Job also has 3 friends in search to understand God. Eliphaz the Temanite and Bildad the Shuhite and Zophar the Naamathite, they meet together to go and console and comfort Job. And for a while, they speak no words to Job, for they saw that his suffering was very great. And that's something about community. The presence of friends is more important than words. The willingness to listen and to care for a grieving friend is of most importance. Words may come later. Questions and advice may be helpful or not, but a spiritual presence is vital. Prior to the Northern Indiana District Conference at Camp Mac this fall, annual conference moderator Dava Hensley led a continuing education event for pastors that was titled Good Grief Church, Understanding Grief. And she suggested that when we think about grief, we may think of dramatic loss of loved ones, like Job. But there are many kinds of grief. And one comment that she made was that if you are breathing, you are grieving. Even within the church, we are grieving for the loss of members or pastors or good friends. It may be possible to deal with our grief and go through the stages of grief alone. But we often find it easier when we have a community of faithful friends making the journey with us down that yellow brick road. Dorothy's journey down the yellow brick road was made easier by the presence of the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man. While each was dealing with their own personal needs and issues, they were also a support to each other and to Dorothy. And Job's friends were present for Job. They listened and they spoke. They sought to be supportive, yet they challenged his perceptions. And together they prepared Job for his meeting with God. They didn't have all the right answers for Job, but they kept him alive and dealing with life and death issues. The story of Dorothy in the land of Oz ends with Dorothy back home in Kansas with a deeper understanding and appreciation of family. As Dorothy proclaims, and oh, Auntie Em, I'm so glad to be home again. And the story of Job, of the land of Uz, ends with Job's life and fortunes being restored by the Lord, and Job with a deeper understanding of God. And the story of Job concludes, and Job died old and full of days. This morning, before I ate breakfast and prepared to come here, I was doing daily devotions, and this reading from Richard Rohr's daily meditation, this paragraph caught my attention this morning. Visionaries, prophets, and Jesus have all warned us that this journey we are on will be beset by troubles. In this life, you and I will have trouble. How we handle that trouble is our witness to future generations. An old order is passing away, a new order is on its way, and we do not have the power to stop or slow the transitions that we encounter, but we can live through them and help one another. Rejoice, beloved. You are not alone. Amen.